Okay, guys, first things first, because YouTube has significant difficulties with the simplest of things. Let me check and make sure we do have the right thumbnail, and we do. Wow. Way to go, YouTube. Way to always way to impress me by accomplishing the very most basic of tasks. And here we go. We got folks coming in already. We got Haroon here, and John's in, and Jay's here. Yeah, this is and Niall and Lasagna Man and Fluffy and Wolverine. Curtis is running for president because I can't take it anymore. We talk about this in the live streams all the time, but it's just we just keep going deeper and deeper into a hole here in America. And in so many ways, I mean, it's so unnecessary. And we got both sides working so hard to maintain the vitriol and the tension with the other opposing, which it shouldn't be, side, that something's got to be done. So I'm going to come out here on these Curtis in 2024 videos and answer absolutely anything from anyone. And I encourage you, once these videos go live, clip any part of it out of any of my answers, anything you want. Clip any of them out of here, post them anywhere you want, let me know, and I'll even promote them. And I want to get up on the debate stage with some of these tool bags that we have either in office or planning on running for office in 2024. Lick says, don't worry, folks, it does this every year. Yeah, we're running it right through the election, Licks. But I don't know how I go about getting on the ballots. These are all the things we're going to have to figure out. But once I get enough of you guys here supporting me and spreading the word, it'll all work itself out. We'll get the staff of all staffs running this campaign. Millie Joe says, question, what would you do to get the country out of its current potato? Which is, see, actually, I think these town halls, press conferences, anything like that would be much more entertaining if people were allowed to phrase their questions just that way. But you have to be more specific about what part of the potato. I mean, there are ways to raise ourselves out of the spud in a number of different manners, but you'd have to be specific. Are we talking the peel? Are we talking the eyes of the potatoes? Are we talking French fries? I got to get specifics, and I'll tell you how we'll get us out of here. More waifu in 2024. Rangiku Wen Zurazul says, well, certainly my administration will. I don't know if you can say that it will be representative of anime, but it will have total and utter respect for anime. The first administration of its type in America. You got a notification, Rosa? Wow. There must be something to this whole Curtis in 2024 thing then. Wow. Quest Guy says Curtis 2024 is actually happening, huh? You better get Susan out of business. Well, from what I understand, I guess now the other shoe has fallen on these specific videos you're talking about, the ones that I had taken down on a number of them. So either they found more of them, which isn't hard to do, or it's a response to having taken mine down in the interaction we had. I don't know. Very political questions, Willie says. If you put icing on a bagel, is it a donut? No. How do you plan to deal with California's BS? First of all, on question one, no, it is a bagel with icing. Because, and I like bagels, don't get me wrong, I do not want to irritate or have the bagel mobs of social media coming after me. I enjoy bagels. But they do not have the sweetness and the character to be called a donut. Putting icing on them is not a bad idea. In fairness, putting icing on anything is never a bad idea, but no, it is not. How do you plan to deal with California's BS? Well, actually, Willie, in my administration, one of the key goals is to return as much authority to the states and to the to the local governments as possible. So California can hopefully keep a lot of their BS, pass the insane amount of taxes, which are already pretty insane out there, along to their own people, because that way you can allow them to have their own BS, Texas to have their own BS, Illinois have their own BS, so on and so forth. I know that will be met with resentment in Congress, because anytime you talk about taking a national politician and giving them less power, it doesn't work well. It meets with great resistance, but we're going to force it anyway. Curtis is 2024, Jacob says. Well, thank you, Jacob. You've never had a bagel, Big Green? No, well, I don't think they are. Bagels aren't as popular, I believe, in the UK or in Europe in general. Well, I shouldn't say Europe in general. In the UK, as they are here in America, are they? Krusty Baum says putting icing on anything is never a bad idea. Curtis Candy 2021. What about icing on human bodies? Well, Rule 34, my friend, Rule 34. Lord Coldcut says, I am here and I support it. Let's all touch tips to show our approval. Indeed, touching tips will be encouraged in my administration. Member Barry says, seeing how North Korea, DPRK, and China has stuck their chin at the Biden administration after the progress Trump administration made with them, how you get them back in line and following previous agreements. China and North Korea, my stance on North Korea is we just need to make it plain and clear that, listen, with what, and I feel that America is justified in delivering this message. With what you have said, North Korea, with what you have said to us and about us, we cannot allow you to get nuclear weapons. So that's not a declaration of war. It's saying that we're going to continue doing the things that we're doing right now. We're going to keep all the embargoes in place. We're going to do whatever it takes to prevent you from getting the weapons that you have repeatedly said you would use to try and obliterate us. And if there is conversation to be had on that level, and I believe that it's sincere, great, we'll have some conversation. If not, let's hope it doesn't come, push doesn't come to shove. As far as dealing with China, I'm not for pussyfooting around China. Nobody wants, listen, in my administration, my wish would be we could get along with everybody. It's just like returning power to the states, but on a national level. Let China do what they want, let Russia do what they want, as long as it doesn't adversely affect us. I'm not one for meddling in others' affairs, but I won't even say take actions, when you allow a situation to occur that results in a global pandemic, I've got a little bit of an issue with that. And I would like to have some answers regarding all of that. I do have plans in place to hopefully try and alleviate some of the consumerist dependency we have on China. I think that's a very important first step in dealing with China, is trying to help get the shackles of what we owe them off our necks. Hey, Brother Malachi. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, my friend. Victory. Yes, thank you. I've never seen, again, you guys know I'm very simple and really enjoy those stickers. I don't think I had seen the hippo dude before. He's jacked. I like him. He could definitely take me in a fight. Brother Malachi says, hashtag justice for Spaz Boys. Spread the word. It is interesting, isn't it, though, that after I had that go-round with YouTube on social media, that all of a sudden they started taking down, that's YouTube. Instead of doing the right thing and reinstating mine, they'd rather do the wrong thing than go ahead and just start taking down everybody else's. Oh, Zerozul says, can we get a Curtis versus Cuomo ERB for 2024? Well, you guys know how I feel about Andrew Cuomo. I have no respect for him. So yes, I wouldn't mind a Curtis versus Cuomo ERB at all. And I will be happy to play one of the characters, just not the Cuomo one. Swole hippo. Yeah, Big Green. I like that hippo. The president clearly deserves the muffin button, Fluffy. I, oh, you know, I'm not going to spend a lot of money, of the taxpayers' money, on a muffin button. But I must admit, as president, what's the salary, like 400 grand a year? To most people that get that job, it's a deduction. For me, that'd be a huge bump in pay. So maybe out of my personal salary, since I'll get to know some really top level scientists and stuff while doing the job, I might see how much it would cost to have a muffin button installed into the White House. Carlos says, "Yo, Curtis, I haven't been watching your channel in a while since Naruto. I'm glad you're still on here, dude. Keep it up." Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Barry says, "Sure, we want China to do their own thing, but seeing how their economy directly affects ours, it does, and their economy is based on the U.S. dollar, how can we create a distance there to support our own economy first?" I wish I could give you the easy answer. Barry's, we've allowed them to integrate themselves into our own economy because of their super cheap goods. And it's just, how many decades has this been going on? I mean, I'd like to tell you there's a magic wand, we could wave to be rid of the inequities in that relationship. But the best we can do is, as a country, start making Americans more aware of their buying choices. It's tough because in America, we want to run an economy where people can have a decent wage at their job, which means the cost of manufacturing is going to be significantly more than it is in China, where they'll pay them whatever they damn well feel like paying them. And that's how we got into the situation we're in right now. It's a complex question. I'd give you an answer if there was an all-purpose answer. It's something it took decades to get us into this spot. It's going to take decades to eradicate us from this spot, and it's going to have to be with the cooperation of the general public. As long as we keep buying all their stuff, it's just like the people that hate Jeff Bezos, however pronounces his name, Space Boy, but yet have 20 boxes a month shipped to them from Amazon. We can't really get rid of this inequity as long as we keep buying so much stuff from China. Hi, Curtis. I'm from Paraguay, South America. Oh, that's very cool, Pablo. Good to have you here. Squidward tentacles. You would also like to know what was that? What is Squidward tentacles is here? Squidward says, "Will you be changing Florida to super doper crazy trippy drug land, Mr. President?" Very serious topic. I don't think Florida has the market cornered on all those specific descriptions. Do you? I mean, I certainly Florida has their share. They certainly have enough Florida man situations down there to have a super dopey, crazy, trippy drug land. But I don't know that we could give that just to Florida, because we got some pretty super dopey tripper, did I say that right? Stuff going on even here in New York. Willie says, "Since you are a huge supporter of free use and free speech, how you intend to deal with these goddamn social media sites?" Oh, yeah. Well, you guys know how I feel about social media sites. And again, that's where, as president, you have to consult with the legal minds. I'm not going to pretend by any stretch that I'm a lawyer. I want a method that these social media sites need to be held to a standard of fairness. That's all. They're a private company. They can write up their terms of service any way they want, as long as it falls within the laws of the land. But and this goes either way, I would like to see it whereas if they have a specific political leaning, that it has to be stated. You want to use social media site XYZ, and if there is a lean, if it means you're going to have a certain political perspective, the odds are greater of you being taken off or removed from that platform, then they need to state it. And if anybody can prove in court, and this is what I'd like to see, if it can be proven in court where they're not being fair and they're saying that they're providing this service for all, then they should be able to be held financially liable. Basically, what I want is I want the social media sites to stay out of it. They have become the most used, by far, most utilized method of exchanging information in the world, and certainly in this country, and there is a responsibility with that. So to me, if you're going to provide that platform, you have to provide it for all. The only exceptions, as far as I'm concerned, should be egregious exceptions. If you're on there saying, okay, we're going to arrange a riot in downtown Portland tomorrow, of course that gets taken out. You can't allow anything to be said where they're specifically calling for violence or they're specifically calling for the harm of an individual or another group. But outside of that, stay out of it. You're better off letting people out themselves for who they are than trying to silence them. As long as it's not a call for harm to others, then I say they shouldn't be allowed to deplatform, or they're going to have to prove they do it even-handedly across the board, and that would be so difficult for them to do. They're better off to just say, okay, we're not deplatforming people unless it's something entirely egregious. Firewall Dragon says, wait, I thought Oregon already took the spot of super duper drug land. You got a strong case there. That's true. I hate to say that to the Florida people who, want that mantle, but yeah, Oregon's got a strong case they can make too. Washington as well. Washington State. Rosa says the USA football team is getting close to winning the CONCACAF Cup. Not that means a lot considering North American nations are not the best, but still a possible 7th cup. I did see that. You know me, Rosa. I don't follow soccer, football closely, but I did see that this morning on ESPN. That they're kicking ass. But like you say, it's one of those things where you consider the competition and it's like, it's nice. Probably doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of the sport. Mistress says, if China stopped making stuff, would that be a disaster for other countries? Or are we just doing it because it's convenient and cheaper? As it stands right now, I don't know that it would be a disaster. It would be a major inconvenience. See, we have to decide as a nation, do we want to continue being indebted to China? Or do we want to be more self-sufficient when it comes to our own goods? And it's not even, it's all about the trade balances. If we want to keep being consumerist with Chinese goods, we need them to being as much of a quality consumer of our goods as possible. Now, because of that, you have things like the NBA where you have a number of players who are also activists, which is fine, that's their right, but their activism stops short of any of the horrific things China may do, they just won't even comment on. And that gets a little bit more than just irritating to me. You can't be for fairness and justice for all, except when it affects my bottom line, because the NBA needs that Chinese market. China is huge to the NBA. And I'm just using them as one example, but it goes on all the time. So if we're going to keep this, what I'm saying, if we're going to want them to be a consumer of our goods, we can't live in fear of them. Where they say, okay, well, because we have control of what our people see, we just will kill your exposure over here. We have to be able to stand up as a country and say, then, you know what? We're all going to have to suck it up and pay more for our goods because we're going to take this specific export that you send over here and we're not going to let it in until you release your embargo. That's the only way I can see of playing the game with them. Firewall Dragon says, is it wrong to call a watermelon an N-word pickle? If it is, my dad is a genius. Oh, that's terrible. I'd never heard that one before. Oh my gosh, that's awful. Ben says, I have two political questions. What political party are you running on? And also, if you get a nomination, who would you pick as a running mate? I would not run on a political party. It would have to, the only way I'm running would be on on the internet party. It would be word of mouth and try and spread it through the internet, because I refuse to align as a Republican, Democrat, or any one of the other, certainly not a Green Party. There is no party that I feel comfortable aligning with. Okay, let's go nuts and say actually people started picking up on this, and we start doing these streams, and we got 1 million people watching these streams, and there's momentum on it. And if somebody from either party or any party came to me and said, "Hey, yeah, you're actually getting attention here. If if you'll hook up with us, we can possibly push you across the finish line." I said, "No, that's all right. I'll take my chances on being a runner-up. I have no desire to be pigeonholed with a specific set of beliefs, and particularly in today's hyper-partisan America, once you're part of a party, that's it. You're supposed to toe the line, down the line, and that's not gonna happen." And as a running mate, I don't know. I thought about that. It's going to have to be somebody. It's going to have to be somebody clearly centered. That's all I can tell you. It won't be anybody from the extreme right or the extreme left. It's going to have to be somebody that's pretty well centered. I would probably take, if I were interviewing running mates, I would take the Democrats that I've seen as being honest and willing to look at things across the aisle, and the same with the Republicans, the ones who would honestly be willing to take a look at things across the aisle and interview all of them and try as best I could to determine who is legitimately there for the good of all. Let's see. Oh, here's Philip. China won't comment on their own human rights population, but they have no problem pointing out the faults of every other country. It's like that one girlfriend who says everything is your fault. I agree, Philip. I've told you guys before, I am, and well, we won't talk about what will happen to the train during my administration. I am aghast by, and that's a good word, aghast. Has anybody said that in the last 50 years? But anyway, I am aghast by how little repercussions China is suffering. And I don't even mean necessarily tangible repercussions. I just mean as far as even shouldering any of the blame for unleashing a killer pandemic on the world. And it's like everybody has to tap dance around them. And I know there are idiots out there. I'm aware that whenever we talk about China being the source of the pandemic, then there's some idiot, some moron somewhere who will try and victimize an Asian person over it. And as I've said over and over, that's the dumbest thing you could do, because there's nobody victimized more by the Chinese government than Chinese people. Why the hell would you be lashing out at them, particularly a Chinese person here in America? But it just is amazing to me that there is not more backlash. And I don't did Trump take it too far to the other extreme with some of the terminology he used? Yeah, that wasn't necessary. It can be discussed in an adult manner. But then the other side of the coin is when Biden says basically, well, no, we're not, and he didn't, I know this is paraphrasing, but what he has given as his overall stance on it is, well, we're not going to throw blame anywhere. Yes, we are. The blame is on the Chinese government. Whether it came from a lab or whether it came from those abysmally filthy wet markets, it's the fault of the Chinese government. BTG says, will you stand for hot robot bodyguards for all? Oh, hot robot bodyguards would be so awesome. Oh, I would be so happy if there were hot robot bodyguards. Who is that character I'm trying to think of? I can't think what cartoon it is. They're always saying, I'd be so happy if there were hot robot bodyguards. Yes, I would support that 100%. Jackson says, California, funny enough, has case law that if you control public square, you can be held to the First Amendment. There's been a push to add this to Section 230 at so much market share as well. That's interesting. I like that. Sure. Yeah, that's fair. If where you're actually using numbers, there's an actual standard to be met. That I did not know that, Jackson. I like that. Yeah, I do. I believe that the social media companies have an extraordinary responsibility. And right now, I think they're completely shirking it. Barry says, seeing how car U.S. companies are flip-flopping between foreign plants and U.S. plants, would you offer them benefits to keep the plants here permanently or penalties if they stay foreign and import cars? That's something I'd really have to see more specifics on, Barry's. Yeah, I would be all for encouraging those jobs, obviously, get lost train, to stay in America or come back to America. I will say this, what I'd be looking at right away is American companies, car manufacturing companies, that are producing their cars, well, I was going to say overseas, but not necessarily overseas, but outside the country. I would be taking a real hard look at what they get for tax breaks and incentives here, because they, at the very least, they could count on those those disappearing into the night. Those would be gone. But yeah, it would depend on situation. But as an overall philosophy, yes, I would be more than happy to. See, this is one of the reasons why, even again, if a campaign like mine were to take off, it probably wouldn't get that far, because all I can tell you guys is I'm not suicidal. So if I commit suicide, I was Epsteined, because doing something like this, I refuse to be beholden to anybody. And certainly wouldn't be car companies, wouldn't be pharmaceutical companies. It's just, no, I don't care. It's not worth their money to me to achieve any goal. Zurzul says, my dad works occasionally with a sister company in China. At the end of December, before we heard about COVID, their secretary kept saying, don't come over here. Whatever you've heard, it's worse. I tell you, Zurzul, I'm hearing more, I've heard and read more and more stories along those lines, and from from a lot of reputable people, that stories coming out of China that they were aware that something bad was really taking place. I mean, come on, we know China is 100% lying. What did they say they lost, like 5,000 people to the virus? I'd be willing to bet at the height of the virus spread over there, they were probably losing that in a day. Had to be. Jack Queen says, U.S., NATO, and EU will be officially releasing all their findings and basically blaming China pretty soon. Hopefully it actually comes to something. That's what I'm waiting to see too, Jack. And that's what I'm waiting to see, is if it actually is released, and when it does happen, when they come to their conclusion, I have concerns that it's going to be one of those, well, we have very strong indications that this, and this took place in China, and that's bad, but we can't prove it, so just don't do it again. That's what I'm not hoping for that. That's what I'm waiting for to happen, that type of thing. The old slap on the wrist, or the shame finger, and then let's just all go be friends again because we want to buy that cheap Chinese crap. Looks, Susan's censoring your lame jokes. Well, that's not a surprise. Josh says, hey, Curtis, could I nominate Krillin as your VP? If nothing else, Josh, it would be fun to watch his own count go up as VP. Yeah, exactly. Saren says, UK was losing 1K people per day in January, February, so a country with a population 1 billion definitely had some high numbers. Exactly, Saren. And a country, we have to point out, too, that was at ground zero. So, I mean, you start talking about with absolute no idea what was going on. And we all saw at the beginning of this, we all saw the videos that were snuck out of China of them welding shut apartment doors from the outside, of people just teetering over in the streets. We saw all that. There were pictures that were smuggled out of bodies lining hallways in hospitals. But I believe, and I could be wrong on this, I'd have to look it up. I believe I read that officially they are saying that there were 5,000 deaths in China. Yeah, exactly, Lou. Strict finger wagging. That's what I'm waiting for. That's what I do believe that all those entities involved are looking for the opportunity to go and nothing more. Wolverine says, "Are you going to throw Susan in Harlong's dungeon?" Well, not physically Wolverine, but YouTube will absolutely and obviously be included in those parameters that all social media companies, the line that they will all be forced to toe. So there's not going to be any more, well, you do this thing that fits within or violates our terms of service. This person does something that's clearly, without question, much more egregious. But boy, I really like this particular artist, or I don't want the mobs coming after me if I take an action against them. So you can go ahead and do it. There's not going to be any more of that. And if there is, I would have the U.S. Attorney General's office take up for individual YouTubers in those situations wouldn't have to get lawyers to fight it. Because if people are writing to the Attorney General's office and they can prove where this stuff is taking place, the Attorney General will look into it. Zurzul says, "Can your VP be Hitomi Tanaka, please and thank you?" We can, listen, all I can say is applications will be open. Rosa says, "I think that when China was doing the maths, they realized they never paid attention in maths class." Oh, well, slap a random number on it. Yeah. I mean, and again, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's their official stance right now is 5,000 deaths. And it's like, that's why it's funny whenever you hear anybody talking about the pandemic and saying that whoever it may be, so-and-so has the most deaths in the world, or this nation has the most deaths per capita, this one has the most hospitalizations per capita. Shut up. You don't have any idea worldwide what that is because you're not getting real numbers from China, Russia, or a number of other nations. Anybody that thinks anything that comes out of those two countries regarding the pandemic is accurate numbers is insane, particularly China. Oh, Jack says, having internet issues, can see the chat but not the vid. I wonder what's up with that, Jack. Everybody else okay with it? It's coming through okay on my feed. Who knows? Might not be internet issues, Jack. Might be Susan issues. Poppy says, "I'm not nice, but don't make this ginger angry." Uh-oh, what happened, Poppy? Simping Stan says, "Ice? Wallow? Come." Special says, "Imagine voting on global decisions at the Goose." I would, you know what I would like to do as president, as long as they could, and they should be able to. You would think we would have the techie geeks at our disposal to do such a thing. I would love to be able to have these types of conversations with the nation. Hell, excuse me, let's put them on YouTube, and we'll send all the super chat money to a specific area of need for every month. Once a month, we have the White House set up their own YouTube channel. Once a month, you have an hour conversation with the president where I will pick and choose just randomly. I will read comments and answer them just like we do here. And all super chats, there will be a stated either charity or project, governmental project, that the money goes towards funding. Jack says, "I think it's just me. YouTube just basically shut down for me here. Other sites running fine." Sounds like some YouTube server. Well, Jack, you got to remember though, it can't be YouTube's problem because they don't make mistakes. So it's gotta have something to do with me. Yeah. You have to remember that. That's very important. Okay, Barry's has got it. Quick Google search says mainland China had 92,605 confirmed cases. 92,000. 87,228 recovered and 4,636 deaths. But we all know Google does not have accurate numbers since it's banned in China and territory. Yet nobody has accurate numbers. That's absurd. China, ground zero for the virus, had a total of 92,000 cases and 4,600 deaths. And that's who unfortunately, as Americans, that's who we're supposed to deal with as a serious entity. Come on. Zurzul said, yes, North Korea, we considered your application for nuclear arsenals, but we will decline it. And the American people went goose, 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 goose. Right, right. I see. I don't think you can, and I know some people say, well, you don't even have conversations with a dictator or a madman like what we deal with over in North Korea with Kim. But I don't necessarily agree with that. But I think you make it very plain and very clear. And hey, diplomacy is great, but sometimes you just have to state facts as facts. And the simple fact is, as I said earlier, North Korea, their government has made it very clear they pull no punches in letting us know that they want to obliterate us. They threaten to do it all the time. So given that, it only tends to follow that we're not going to let you get nuclear capability. We are not going to allow that to happen. Now, if you want to, and this you being Kim, want to allow your people to continue starving, that sucks. We take no joy in that. But it's either we cut off your supplies, we cut off your ability to comfortably live to try and force you to give up these ambitions, or we engage in conflict. And engage in conflict has to be always a last-ditch effort, the last resort. Now, if you had China not undercutting everything that the rest of the world is trying to do with North Korea and providing them with goods and services anyway, who knows where we might be? We might be much further along in the process than we are right now. Philip says Trudeau has a YouTube channel. Nobody follows it, though, because everything he says is bullshit. I didn't know that. I didn't know he had a YouTube channel. No, I think that's something that's, listen, the Curtis administration is going to be all about transparency. I like the opportunity to answer directly to people. I think that's how it should be. Yeah, Gabe says if China was to control Google, they would not be accurate on a lot of their stories. Well, in fairness, I don't think Google worries a lot about accuracy anyway, but you are correct. Because you guys know, we'll do within these political streams conversations on all of these topics, but specifically the state of journalism in America and why we don't actually have a lot of fake news from the journalists, but we do have unreliable slanted news. And that's sad. As somebody whose education was in journalism, that's very sad to me. King Rianson says, hey, Curtis, any thoughts on Rand Paul's questioning of Fauci on the funding of the lab doing gain-of-function research? Looks like we have a hand in this too, probably why we won't get a real investigation. It does. I agree with you, King, in that it doesn't look good. It does look like Fauci's hands are dirty in all this, and that's really concerning. And once again, it's always about roadblocks. Whenever there is something that appears to be untoward, it all comes down to which party would be adversely affected if it's found out that something unsavory was going on. And right now you have Democrats in control, and Democrats feel that that would hurt them, so you won't see a real investigation. And that's not to single them out. Republicans do the same thing. And that's another thing that stops in the Curtis administration. I don't give a damn whose side you're on. If you have any type of connection in those regards to China, and you had any potential knowledge of what they might be doing in that lab, and even if you didn't, I would still want to know why. Why are we involved at all in any way, shape, or form with what goes on in Chinese labs? Other than to hopefully potentially spy on them and understand what they're trying to do before they can inflict something on us. But cat's out of the bag on that one because we've been inflicted. But yes, that's very concerning. And at least under the current administration, I don't see it being pursued properly. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Spezio says, hey, we could all be your secret police force to take over the world. If not, I hope we can still have our secret community because I love this family. Oh, yeah. Well, I will, as president, I would have to instruct our tech geeks to allow me to maintain my own little community that existed prior to me getting that pain in the ass office. A slave to something says, in all fairness, if it was bioengineered, it'd be a lot more effective lethal. You would think a slave to something, but you don't really know if it was bioengineered. It doesn't necessarily have to be bioengineered to be a global killer. You know what I'm saying? It all depends on what was the end game in what they were trying to engineer. I understand what you're saying, but that's only true if the actual goal was elimination. And for a number of reasons, that may not be the case. It may have been something, if it was being bioengineered, you would think it would be being bioengineered in a manner that could somewhat be contained, controlled. And also, you would have to wonder, even if that was the end goal, as it escaped from the lab, we don't have any idea at what stage of the process it was in. So, we may not have been hit with a final result. We may have been hit with something that was a work in progress. Yeah, John Cena. Like Lord Coldcut says, John Cena. Wow, Taiwan is a nice country. China, what? John Cena. Oh, sorry. So, didn't mean anything by it. That type of attitude's just got to go in America. It's got to be gone. Brother Malachi says, the problem is that was it a prototype and thus not finished when it leaked out? Exactly my point. Was it meant to kill or to undermine? Treatment costs money and people. Right. Exactly, Brother Malachi. That's where I am too. If that was the case. Now, I don't want to say by any way, shape, or form do I know or have any reason to strongly believe that it was released from the lab. Is it a possibility? Absolutely. But could it have been an accident, and could it have been an animal to human transmission in those filthy wet markets? That's entirely possible too. But yeah, while I understand what you're saying, if you are going to engineer something like that with pure Dr. Evil intentions and you just wanted to wipe out the planet, this was not going to do it. But you just don't know what the end game would have been with whatever they were engineering. Josh says, when you become president, how much shit are you declassifying? Hard to say because it depends on what shit specifically. Obviously, I'm not going to declassify anything that would compromise our security in any way. Would I tend to declassify things that I think people would be fascinated in without potentially undermining security? Sure. I believe people have a right to know most things. Now, it's entirely possible there are things there that would create a panic. And we know that it doesn't have to be, hey, the aliens are going to be here to blow up the planet. They told us specifically, and they'll be here in 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be that dire. We all know how people in America like to take and run with anything and turn even the most benign of things into a panic. So you do have to be careful with what you let out there. But I'm all for people knowing as much as possible. As far as aliens, things like that. All right, let me give you a specific situation. Would I declassify information that says we know for a fact America has encountered alien life? Probably. Now, would I declassify specifics? Probably not. Because I don't think you'd have people panicking in the streets. I mean, if I can declassify and honestly say, listen, we know that we're not alone in this universe, but we have no reason to believe that we're at threat in this universe. We are threatened in this universe. I would let people know. Drew says, what's your opinion on the audits? Oh, Drew, you're talking about the audits in Georgia? Personally, I think it's a waste of time. Do I like the way everything was handled in the last election? No, I don't like anything. I don't like going too far to where you're allowing or making it more convenient for any type of chicanery to take place when it comes to our elections. And I firmly believe that everyone should have to have identification to vote. That said, I also do not like intentionally creating polling places that are very sparse. In other words, there's too much distance in between them. I think you should always be working to have as many open, valid polling places as you can. I mean, it was a unique situation because of the pandemic, but as far as mail-in voting, I'm for it as long as it's absentee style where the person has to request the ballot, have it mailed to them, and then mail it back. I am never for any mass mailings. All that said, I think that what's going on with these recounts and everything and the audits is a waste of time. Was there any type of fraud? Probably. I think there is in every election. It's impossible for there not to be. Do I believe that any of it could have amounted to enough of a number to swing the election? No, I don't think it's there. ZOMG Ruler says, you remind me of Jesse Ventura. I'll take that as a partial compliment. I like Jess, don't get me wrong, but he has been ever since his wrestling days. He's pretty batshit. And I don't say that I don't mean that to be demeaning to him or anything or as an insult. I just think some of the things he thinks and believes are kind of wacky. I think as a person, he seems like a good dude to me. But yeah, I think he's a little nuts. A slave to something says GOP be like city with 3 million. Yeah, here's one voting place for you. Farm with 2 guys and 4 goats, have at least 5 stations. Yeah, that's why I could never run on a ticket on a party, because I try the best I can to see things as fairly as possible. And you're 100% right. There's no question the GOP would like to have certain areas where it's more difficult to get to a polling place. There's no question that's not acceptable. But in fairness, there's no question that the Democrats would like to make voting as overly simplified as possible. They obviously feel like they have a lot of not highly motivated votes out there. So if they can basically go, and I don't mean this literally, but in essence, go to their house, hold the ballot out and say, here, just write in what you want here, that works better for them. And that's why we are where we are with the battle over voting rights. Barry says, next 2 ports, it's 2 parts about North Korea. All right, well, let me see. I'll try and remember. I don't see anything from Barry's yet. Spezio says, what are you going to do about the tech support scammers? Oh, that's where my staff would have to rein me in because I'd be leaning too hard on people that scam others online or via phone or whatever the case may be. I would be leaning too hard towards capital punishment there. I'd have to be reined in on that one. Barry says, North Korea will always have a steady flow of cash income. I watched a documentary where they ship off men and prisoners to Russia and African countries to do hard manual labor for cheap, while the government is paid thousands of dollars for the labor. Living conditions are awful and the workers are fed the bare necessities. You can find it on YouTube, or if not, you can find from Vice. Yeah, I mean, do I know that's actually going on and they're accurate? No. Would it surprise me? Not at all. We do know that China undermines the efforts that the rest of the world makes in trying to prevent North Korea from developing effective nuclear weapons. We'll say, okay, well, North Korea, this is what we're clamping down on now. None of export XYZ will be imported into your country. The rest of the world goes, okay, cool. And China goes, wink, wink, nod, nod. Tonight, after everybody's not looking, we'll shoot some in via a ship. We know that goes on. ZOMG Ruler says, have you heard anything about the March for Medicare for All? No, I haven't. Now there's going to be a march for it. You guys know how I feel about Medicare for All. I think it's one of the dumbest things we could possibly do. I take away the specifics of Medicare for All, and let's go more general. No one can ever make me believe that it's a good idea to have our federal government handle more of your money, be responsible for more big operations, such as providing health care to everybody. Why would anybody think that's going to be a situation that works? The government has never been able to handle something like that effectively from a fiscal perspective, never been able to handle it from an implementation perspective, ever. Look at what they've done to Social Security. It's destroyed. And it shouldn't be. Plenty of money went into that system. There are viable solutions to getting health care for everybody. You do not have to start giving big hunks of your paycheck to the almighty government to have them dole out what they feel is necessary and have even more control of your life because of it. Lick says, oh, I can say that, but I can't make fun of China. Thanks, Susan. I didn't see what you said earlier, Licks. Yeah, that one surprised me. So Licks is really struggling to get posts to display today. Dementia Master says, hey, Curtis, what is your opinion on the libertarian political stance? Well, see, the libertarians lose me early, Dementia Master. I agree, and can be said for all the political parties. I agree with a lot of their positions. But when basically your cornerstone is all taxation is theft, I think that's ridiculous. It is not. And it is necessary. I don't care how many different ways libertarians try to spin that. Taxation is necessary. Outside of that, the way they feel about limited government involvement and, well, it's in their name, and personal liberties, sure, I am on board with a lot of their beliefs. But again, you lose me right off the hop with that. Lil L says, should not free healthcare be a human right? No. For one thing, there is no such thing as free healthcare. That amazes me when people even use that term. Where in the world is there free healthcare? Somebody's paying for it everywhere. Should access to healthcare be a right for everyone? Absolutely. Absolutely. But there is nothing wrong with putting in a system that rewards those who want to help themselves. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But the phrase free healthcare raises my cockles to begin with, because there is no such thing. Somebody's got to pay for it. I mean, doctors, nurses have to be paid. Medicine has to be bought. Hospitals must be maintained. Somebody's got to pay for that. There is no such thing as free healthcare. Spagio says, what if we have to stage a coup d'etat to take over? Well, let's keep that in our back pocket as a last resort, Spagio. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that, Philip. Can we get those documents that were supposed to come out about the Kennedy assassination that Trump blocked? I had forgotten all about that till you just said that. I don't know. I'll read them for you, and if it's at all possible, yes. Absolutely. Master, we have free healthcare in the UK. No, you don't. Somebody pays for your healthcare. Well, you guys do. You pay for it in taxes and value added. Well, there's still taxes, value added taxes. Yes, you do. If the healthcare were entirely free, that would mean you don't pay your doctors, right? How is it possible for it to be free? Because because you didn't take anything out of your money from your pocket and pay for it doesn't mean it's free. You just paid for it in other ways. You paid for it through taxes and, again, VATs, things of that nature. Zion G. Ruler says free healthcare is universal healthcare. Single payer healthcare, you pay for everything in one package, doctor, dental, and vision. No, it's never free, Ruler. Somebody has to pay for it. It's impossible for healthcare to be free. As I said, if your healthcare is truly free, who's paying the doctors? Who's paying to maintain the hospitals? Who's paying for the drugs? Who's paying for the research? Who's paying for the lab work? Who pays for that? The government. Where does the government get their money? From the masses. It's not free. It all depends on how you want to go about paying for it. Scrub says, bold of you to assume I pay taxes. Okay, that's fair. Nolan says that government provided healthcare could turn into government taking healthcare in the blink of an eye, and the people at the top wouldn't lose a bit of sleep. Personally, I mean, that's one of my main concerns is I don't like the government having that much control over our lives. And I've always said this. One of the things that really annoys me in government in general is when everybody can identify an issue, but nobody has any decent or any proposals as an alternative. I have a whole entire healthcare design, a way that I think it would work extremely well. See, our system of government, I believe, is the best. It's just corrupted right now. It's corrupted left and right by both sides. The system of government works best for me, when you have when you have an open economy, but the government plays referee. The government makes sure that everything is equal for all. We don't have that. We don't even have attempts at that right now. And even when we go to attempt it, they go about it the wrong way, because anything that any politician wants to do in America now, they want to make sure that a specific demographic feels the benefit of it more so than others, so they can secure those votes. Things aren't done just across the board to be better for everyone, because then it's like, well, I can't trumpet that to this specific group or that specific group who I really need in my corner in the next election. And we'll go into that in some of these specifically. I'll get specifics about how they do that. Spagio says if Biden gets assassinated in the next few years, I did it for you, Curtis. No, don't do that for me. Like I say, I don't even dislike Joe Biden. I don't agree with a lot of his policies, and I do think that he's got something going on health-wise, but I don't dislike Joe Biden. Storm Muhar says, hi, I am from South Africa, and I've been a long-time viewer. I wanted to know your opinions on the cost of medication USA, and what do you think can be done to combat the problem? Simply just a lot more oversight. That's what I'm talking about with government providing oversight, and they don't into the pharmaceutical industry, but go ahead and look at how much pharmaceutical companies contribute to politicians. Like I say, if there weren't 76 viewers in here right now, if there were 7.6 million, you don't think that my life would be potentially on the line? Absolutely it would. Because these pharmaceutical companies and a lot of major corporations, when you start talking about not playing ball with them, it's serious. It's billions and billions of dollars. So the only thing I can say on behalf of the pharmaceutical companies is some people go too far over the top and say, well, you can't charge this for that medicine because somebody else charges less. You can't compare apples to oranges, only because a lot of the time, and I'm going to continue this, I'm not making excuses for the pharmaceutical companies, but a lot of the time it was that American company that invested millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions into the research that produced that medicine. Now that they've done that, somebody else in another nation, their company can make it, but they didn't have that overhead. But what I mean by oversight is there needs to be limits on how much above and beyond their initial investment a pharmaceutical company can charge for what they produce. So in other words, like when you had that Pharma Bro douchebag, if you have a medicine, an established medicine on the market at a certain price, and then you find out that it works really well for something cosmetic, so you're like, whoa, people that want this cosmetic operation or cosmetic procedure, they all have money, and you multiply by 1,000 how much that costs, I'll throw your ass in jail the next day. I want it put in there so you go to federal prison with the big boys. But they need more oversight. They need to be able to come forward and say, okay, we've developed this pill. Here is directly and specifically the amount of money we have put into developing this drug. Now, here's our plan going forward. We want to charge X amount for this drug at this rate. When we recoup our investment, then we're going to provide this drug at X rate. There's nothing like that going on in the pharmaceuticals now. It's the wild, wild west. They do whatever they want. It's all about oversight. It's all about, as I said, it still falls under that same umbrella. The government should be making sure the playing field is fair. But like I say, it's not fair always to compare what you pay for a medicine here as opposed to what you might pay for it in Canada or somewhere else. Sometimes it could be a fair comparison, but you do have to give them the benefit of allowing them to recoup what they put into creating that specific drug. Because trust me, we want them to be able to make money. Let's not be stupid. We want brilliant minds going into the pharmaceutical field. Just like with this virus, whether you want that vaccine or not, mRNA is a mind-boggling scientific leap forward. We want minds like that involved in it so we can hopefully stay safe and live better quality of life. So you don't want to cut it off to where they're not able to make money, but you also don't want them to be able to just absolutely rape people, and they do a lot of the time. Wild card comment says the IRS will find you in the Amazon jungle if you owe them even a cent. Yeah. I would love to see, that's another thing. If not flat rate, I would love to see a super simplified tax structure. I would love to be able to take the IRS and you don't want people to lose their jobs. I would love to be able to take the IRS and dissolve a huge portion of it and allow the people that work there to go into other departments within the federal government. Our tax code system is so ridiculously complicated, and it doesn't need to be. It's just, it's pretty basic stuff. You make X amount, you should be paying a certain percentage to the government to supply you with the things that you need. Taking that a step further, I would want it looked into. I want all the geniuses putting their minds to figuring out how many things that the federal government handles can be handled more effectively and efficiently at state and local levels. Let people live the way they want to live. We know that people of like minds tend to cohabitate, to live in the same areas together. Let them make their own rules, within reason. We still have a constitution. There's a lot of things that the federal government needs to be the arbiter of. But there are also a lot of things the federal government is the arbiter of and would work much better on local levels. A slave to something says it's socialism for the wealthy in terms of government funding, but rugged individualism for the poor, no help but all the costs. For the wealthy, I think more so slave to something. I think more than socialism for the wealthy individuals, it's too much socialism for corporations. So if you're talking corporations, we don't disagree. And rugged individuals, we don't disagree. And you guys know that I'm not in any way, shape, or form ever going to support socialism, but that's for one simple reason. It's the core of what I believe. You don't want government more involved. You do not want to be giving the government your money and having them redistribute it. But if you're saying the corporations, I would agree with you. That would be one of the things that would be addressed immediately in my administration, is all these breaks that are given to large corporations. They can keep them, but if they're going to keep them in my administration, they're going to provide something for them. They're going to have to meet basic standards of healthcare provided for every single goddamn employee on the payroll. And if that means they got to up the cost of their goods or services, so be it. But when you have a price raise that's in a competitive field, it will be the minimal price raise necessary, because that means, and I always use Target and Walmart. I'm sorry, Target and Walmart. Amazon and Walmart. If they both have to provide the same level of health care, they're both in the same boat. So now you would have Walmart and Amazon both putting pressure on the insurance companies to get them as good a deal as possible, which means the insurance companies got to start putting pressure on the pharmaceutical companies to say, listen, you got to get these prices at least a little bit in line for me here. I'm getting pressure from, my end users. That's how you make everything work. Spezio says, important question. How many pogs do I get? I'm not sure that the government can officially go into the pog distribution line. Bylove says, I blame America for hogging all the great stuff and merchandise like DVD releases and t-shirts. Well, of course, in fairness though, Bylove, a lot of our t-shirts and stuff are manufactured overseas, generally in Asian countries. ZOMG Ruler says, that's why Bernie Sanders differentiates between socialism and democratic socialism. Yes and no. There's not as big a divide between the two as he would like you to believe. Again, you're always going to lose me. As soon as you want government more involved, you're going to lose me. It's a losing proposition. It's always going to be a losing proposition. You want to keep as much of the money you can earn. You want to keep as much of that in your pocket as possible. But you need government out there to make sure that the playing field is fair so you can make good buying decisions and get good bang for your buck. That's what the government should be there for. But giving the government your money and then trusting the government to spend it wisely and provide you with the service for that money, why? Why would anybody think they can do it? They've never given us any indication that they can. Never. Another thing that would stop too, as president, and both sides do this equally, as president, like for instance, let's talk about, I'm trying to think of a good example, infrastructure. I'm going to tell Congress, you want to pass an infrastructure bill? Pass a goddamn infrastructure bill. Do not add anything into it that is outside of infrastructure. I hate that. And again, that's both sides. Everybody, when there's something important that needs to be taken care of, such as infrastructure, that's very important. I have firsthand knowledge of that because of the job I used to do. Very important. I want a bill that only covers infrastructure. I don't care what your other pet projects are. I don't care what else you think needs to be addressed at this time. Give me an infrastructure bill or I'll veto the damn thing. And we'll start trying to work through executive order, which I hate. I hate when presidents have to constantly go to executive order. But if Congress is going to be dysfunctional, then they leave you no choice. John says, what about government healthcare alongside of the private sector healthcare to rein in prices? That's very, very similar to what I propose. What I'll do, John, is I'll make the next stream on healthcare and I'll lay out everything for you guys. Yes, government healthcare will always have to be a part of the equation because even for my process to work, we'd have to keep the things that we have in place for sure. That is healthcare for those who can't work, healthcare for those who may be down on their luck, just can't find a job, healthcare assistance for those who are working but just can't make enough to get ahead. That it's got multi-layers. But I want to shift a lot of the responsibility because I think workplaces providing health care is an excellent situation. It works out best for everybody because, again, that turns healthcare into a competitive field. When you get competitive, that's when prices stay the most reasonable. But it's not going to be a huge hit because the people that aren't employed can't be employed, whether it's disabled people, older people, whatever the case may be, underemployed, the underemployed not always, but the others do have access to government health care now. So you're not talking about adding anything onto it. But rather than having the government take over more of it, which they will absolutely, inevitably screw up, allow it to be handled in a competitive nature where the prices stay as low as possible. And you get to keep your money in your pocket and spend it where you think it's best spent. Rob says, speaking of t-shirts, my Clonard shirt just came in today. The one you were wearing before and told me where to get it. Thanks. Oh, cool, Rob. That's a good one, isn't it? I just had it on had it on the other day. Yeah, I love that shirt. Clonard was so good. Really was. Zerzul says, you mean like a bill for COVID aid that has funds for tons of not COVID related things? Is that really cuck stuff up? Who would ever imagine that? Yeah, I hate that, Zerzul. And again, we can, that's not directed at either party because they both do that all the time. That's common practice in American politics now. And that drives me crazy. Listen, again, whatever the case may be, like Zerzul says, if it's COVID relief, or again, if it's infrastructure, write a goddamn bill that just addresses that, get it through, and get it signed and get the relief out to people that need it. Get these processes going. And neither side can do it. It always becomes, well, oh, wait, well, before we propose this, let's attach this. And, oh, you know what? This would be a perfect opportunity. They got to have that. So if we put this on it, they'll sign it anyway. Fuck you. Just do what you're paid to do. Get out there and take care of business at hand, and don't intentionally try and lag stuff down. That stuff drives me nuts. Jack Queen says, what about if 2% a year was taken out of people's wages, would go straight to the hospitals, etc., and they would arrange a more accessible health care, keep the government and insurance out of it? 2% taken out of people's... The only problem I would have with that, Jack, is I get nervous because you know who would have to take the 2% out? The government. And just like it was just going to be a certain percentage taken out for Social Security, once you allow the government to get that money, strange things start to happen to it. Because we have the boomers coming of age now, of retirement age. We put in just insane amounts of money into that Social Security system when it was put in place. If the money had been handled properly, there should be tons of money, because the generation, excuse me, that had a huge boom in population is hitting that age now. There should be tons of money in the Social Security system, and there isn't. It's always on the brink of despair because of the politicians. So that's the only, in theory, Jack, I like what you're saying. I just don't think in practice the government can pull it off. But I think if you keep it more in the hands of a competitive field where employers have to provide it, I think everybody wins. Because like I say, that becomes the circle. Walmart, Target, or Walmart, Amazon, excuse me, sorry guys. They both start telling the insurance companies, listen, I got to provide this insurance now, or, I don't get this tax break, that tax break. You guys got to come up with, here's what the government says we got to provide. Give me a good price. That immediately puts pressure on, then the insurance companies immediately start putting pressure on the pharmaceutical companies, going, come on, I gotta get these guys a price. You got to stop killing me on this drug or that drug. That's how it works the best. And yes, prices would go up for things, but that, you're going to be paying the necessary amount to get people insured. Once you turn that money over to the government, you're not necessarily just paying the necessary minimal amounts. Josh says, what's sad is that big businesses get tons of aid, but mom and pop businesses are evaporating left and right. Agree with you again. As I said, the thing with trickle-down economics is, in theory, it could work, and in practicality, it could work. But what happens is, and again, I know you guys have heard me use this analogy before, but it's the best way I have to describe it. And it talks about sweets, which as a fat guy, I appreciate. If you take a nice warm cinnamon bun and you put a thin layer of icing on top and let it melt all through, it's delicious all the way through. The whole thing tastes great with that, those delicious drips throughout. But now if you put that thin layer of icing on it and then just keep pounding the icing on top, well, it doesn't all run anymore. Now it just starts congealing at the top, and you take one big, giant, gooey, sweet bite, and everybody else down below gets what's left. And that's what's happening. They talk about trickle-down economics, but they put way, 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 way too much up on top. Rob says, both sides act like when your mom gives you her credit card as a child for gum, then walk out with soda, chips, oops, forgot the gum. Yeah, perfectly analogized, Rob. Yes, absolutely. I just have no faith in government. We could even take it a step further. My healthcare plan, I think it works as is. But say, okay, California is very liberal. Say, no, we want healthcare for all. Say, okay, well, we're going to let you opt out of our plan, and you can institute it statewide, but it will be Californians that foot the bill. I mean, the federal government would still, as long as California was paying that portion back into the federal government, then the federal government would still take care of their elderly, their unemployed, so on and so forth. Or they could just opt out of it altogether, and we say, okay, you keep that tax money and do your own thing. I don't know that would work, I don't know how well you can delineate down where every dollar goes, but I still say what I'm talking about here would work far superior to Medicare for all. The only ones I think that would, the only way I could see that really not working is if you're someone who doesn't want to work, is never going to want to work, and is just going to want to sit on your porch every day, then you should want the Medicare for all system over mine, because mine is designed to reward people who want to do better for themselves. And that's how every policy of mine would be designed, to reward those who want to do better for themselves. The one place I would increase, that I can see right off the top of my head, increase government involvement in healthcare, is with the underemployed, people that are, putting in their 40 hours a week and just aren't making enough. I think the government getting in there and supplementing their health care is a need. And I don't think you'd get much resistance even from Republicans on that, if you can make sure that that money is directed towards those who are trying. Philip says, oh, speaking of mom and pop shops, the Canadian government actually put through a tax break for family businesses and farms. Of course, the bureaucrats initially tried to kill in violation of the law. No, I agree, guys. I mean, we see this stuff all the time, just as others have brought up. The corporations do. They get all the breaks. And it's got to come to a halt. It's got to stop. I think that erroneously too much blame gets sent towards the rich individuals. For the most part, they end up paying their share in taxes. It's their corporations that don't. And it's like, well, tomato, tomato. No, it's very important. It's a very important distinction when it comes to making policy. Make every Tuesday National Hentai Day, Diota says. All right, guys. Well, I got to pack it up. This is the first. I assume by now you're all voting Curtis in 2024. We're going to be doing a lot of these, but now we'll get more into specific details. The next one we do will be healthcare. We'll have one entirely devoted to healthcare. We'll keep having our regular streams as well, obviously, and these will be designated as such. These are not, unfortunately, sticky stuff dispersal ones. It's weird. That's become such a thing that is amongst us and something special for our community, that I actually like doing that just when it's the regular sit around and bullshit streams. Because if I keep continuing doing these Curtis 2024 ones, I think we'll get more and more people in that are here just because a lot of people like talking politics. So these won't be sticky stuff streams, but outside of that, we'll have a good time and we'll solve all the world's problems in these. Have I seen the new ERB? They haven't put out a new one like in the last few days, have they? If they did, I missed it on my, because I subscribe to their channel, which who knows when you get notified, but I'm at their Patreon, and it's entirely possible I could have missed it. But no, if there's a new one since the one they put out a few weeks ago, no, I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to go look. But guys, thank you very much for, I love doing these streams. And you guys, I've always said, I think we have a really pretty sharp community here. No matter what we talk about, whether, in these political streams or more serious streams, there's a lot of people with some really good ideas, whether I agree with them or not, even really good ideas and really sharp thought processes. So thank you for hanging out with me in this one. Next stream will be something more lighthearted, but the next political stream, oh, and I got to get some more gaming in too, but the next political stream, we will be talking about healthcare. But thank you guys. Oh, the one I haven't reacted to yet? Yeah, again, I don't know. I know who both of those people are, but I don't know their histories well enough to make a good reaction video to it. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out and doing this with me, and I will talk to you guys really, really soon.